Hello everybody and welcome to Video Editing, Advanced Narrative Film Editing. This is week 3 that we're at right now. So again, thanks for joining us on this ongoing journey of exploring video editing. We'll be posting our first masterclass of editing on YouTube, so you'll have that as well. And in the meantime, if you want to rewatch these, you can just rewatch them from this link directly that you have. So weeks 1 and 2, if you missed them, don't worry, you can rewatch them. And same with today. Once we're done, you can rewatch them as well. So again, thanks for joining us. And we're gonna have another jam-packed session, go over a bunch of different things, and really focus on some of the trim tools and how to continue to refine our dramatic effect and our drama within the story that we're trying to tell. So that's really the focus. So yeah, just want to thank all our partners in this project. Once again, we have Canada Council for the Arts. We have our library partners, Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library. And want to just mention again that those libraries have our digital arts computer stations. There's iMacs that are specifically designed for digital arts and for video editing. So the Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve Studio is loaded on all of those computers. So there's 2 in each library. And now with reopening, you can go and access these computers. Each library has some different parameters in terms of times and booking and so on. But definitely check it out. If you have a library membership card at any of these libraries, you can just drop in and check it out. So you can access the system that way, and that way, if you don't have a computer, you can work on it there. So again, anything that we're doing here, this can be, I encourage you to, you can take a camera, get a few shots of friends and family, and practice editing with that. It's really more about finding different things, and it's not about necessarily having some professional footage or actors and things. It's about how do you find things, and how can you manipulate them, or how can you edit them to improve the story that you're trying to tell. So we're going to continue looking at different emotions and reactions. And last week we did that as well in terms of changing the story as it was written, as it was performed in the filming of it, and then changing it to to make it whatever we want to make it. And at the end of the day, we can change the drama. We can make the characterizations, the reactions, we can make it very different. So what we did is we took a story where we actually kind of flipped the characters. The original script was there's a gentleman comes to the library, sits down, and there's a woman sitting next to him at another computer station, and she strikes up a conversation. He's just trying to do stuff. He's annoyed. He can't find his search. And she strikes up a conversation, inquires all about his past, recognizes him as a famous author, and talks about how she knows him from the past and things like that. So really interesting, and that's a great way that we can really help to tell our dramatic stories and work on our dramatic effect in terms of how that will function and how that will work and so on. So it's a really exciting a way to retell the story and to make things a bit different and make that work essentially. Okay, so today in terms of what we're going to be doing, we're going to look at the following here. So we're going to explore the trim tools in Resolve. So there's a couple set of trim tools. So we've been just kind of using them, but I thought there's been some questions. I thought we can define that a little bit further in terms of what we're looking at and what it's doing and stuff like that. So we'll really try to make that work and identify what's happening in our story. Okay, so what that will be is so trim tools in Resolve. Then we're going to look at keeping the timeline in sync. Then we'll look at different takes and different emotions, match on action, defined and inaction, and fine tuning the edit. So, what's really important is we'll hear this kind of term. There's your timeline, and we're here. Let's say we're in one part of the timeline, but at the end, there's 20 different shots, and we've created this whole sequence that we're really happy with. And then we change some frames, but what we want to always make sure is that everything stays in sync. So luckily Resolve, everything, a lot of the nonlinear editing has come a long way. You can keep things in sync and work on that. But what we want to look at is how do we just, if we want to add some frames to the tail of a shot. So there's the head, the beginning of the shot, the tail of is the end of the shot. And let's say we want to add a little bit to the tail of the one shot, the outgoing shot. We want to just push everything back. So we don't want to necessarily get rid of the frames on the incoming shot. We want to push everything back. So we're going to look at that kind of trim action and keeping things in sync. So that's what that means there. Different takes, different emotions. The idea there is that we'll look at the same scene and we'll just look at different emotional takes by the actors. So different emotions being, the laughing, smiling, frowning, reactions, and so on. And I think that's always important to look at that catalog of what you have available. And we did that last week, but just want to identify that more clearly. And then match on action. And this is really important. So continuity stuff. So in drama, there's a lot of continuity things. So for example, if I'm reaching out to get this hard drive, right? That's one angle you're seeing there. But let's say there's another angle from this side, right? Then when I'm editing, I want to make sure that I'm matching the action so that if I cut from this camera to this camera, I'm not repeating the action. So that's the match on action, and that's continuity. And that's really important, and that makes things flow really smoothly. There's nothing that can, strike and make the edit very visible is having extra repeated action. So if I grabbed it from this angle, and then I grabbed it from this angle again, you're seeing it twice, and that's annoying, and that's not a match on action. So that's an improper match on action. So we're going to look at, we have a few things here where the gentleman's taking a code and putting it on and stuff. So we want to look at that continuity aspect of matching action. And then fine-tuning the edit, just how do we keep working on the edit and going from there. So that's going to be what we're going to look at today. Lots to do, so let's jump into it. I'm just going to, let's clear up, and just go right into our Resolve screen here. So I have Resolve opened from before. So we have this sequence here. This is exactly what we did last week. And we're going to just look at that and then see kind of where we are from there. So let me just ensure that this is playing back for everybody. Okay, perfect. So that's playing back. So just wanted to make sure that's all working there. So let's go right into here. And I'm going to go to, let's see where we have it here. View, playback. Okay, so we're going to go to Cinema Viewer. Just had to find it here. It's always a little bit different in different editing software. So it's Command F. I'm going to go to Cinema Viewer. And this lets us play in full screen. So that's quite useful. So again, Command F is that one.
Excuse me. Hi, I'm Barb. I notice you're having a little bit of trouble with your computer. Just let me know if you need a hand. I'll be happy to help.
Yes, well, as you can see, I'm struggling a little bit. I seem to be making a lot of noise, don't I? Oh, my name is Jeffrey Lincoln. Yes, I taught for 25 plus years at U of T. Oh, I've been retired for a few years now, though. Still, those were wonderful years. I have great memories of those wonderful years. Listen, so nice to meet you, Bev. You have a great evening. Cheers.
Perfect. Okay, then we'll just hit escape, and that takes us out of the cinema viewer. So again, very handy. Command F is the shortcut key, and that takes us to what's called the cinema viewer. So we get to see the whole thing. So as you can see, this sequence is looking quite nice. And what I'm going to do is, what I always recommend is I'm going to go up here, and let's just zoom in here. I'm going to right click and duplicate timeline. So now I got a copy. Right, so I'm going to say, let's start working on the fine cut. Fine cut 1, advanced editing. Okay, and there we go. So, and then we want to double click on that to make sure we open that as well. And then what we'll know is that it's opened when it's up here. So just this little word of advice here, because sometimes you create the duplicate, but it doesn't open the duplicate. And I think that's important to remember, that we have to double click on it to make it work. Okay, so now with, let's look at some of these trim tools first. So up here, there's a couple things. So we have our main cursor that we're basically using. We click on things, and then these little icons show up here on the bottom. And this middle one is what's just called the roller, right? So it tells you how many frames, and we can use the comma and period to basically roll and move it. Now, what's happening is, you'll see on the top two screens here, they're right, my camera's too low, but right up here, you'll see the viewer, and what that's doing is the viewer lets you then see what you're doing down here in terms of the trim. So as I trim left or right, we're seeing the incoming first frame and the last frame of the outgoing shot change frame by frame. So that's its simplest form of trimming, where we're just literally trimming one side or the other. And then I can click just on the left side on the incoming shot, and I could trim frames off. But what it's doing is it leaves this black space. Right, so that's okay. We might want to do that. And then Command Z just to undo that whole action. And then I'm just going with the arrow keys left, right, and I can see that there's no gap, right? So we don't want to have any black gaps there of no media. And if I click on the outgoing shot, same idea right here, I might need to, I can trim some frames off, and we can work like that. Now from here, I could just snap it to the other one and make sure there's no gaps. And it'll just automatically snap over, which is quite handy. So I'm just going to undo that all to Command Z. So we'll just go back to that. So that's one main way of trimming. Now what we can do too, and we've been doing these, we've talked about the split edits, or the cutting to picture before we see audio, and we did that in the first session for week 1. Just want to reiterate how we do that. So if I hit Option plus the left mouse click, I'm just dealing with the picture only. So now when I trim it, you can see it's not doing anything to the audio, and that's really important. So we're only trimming this picture and not the audio, and that's truly the split edit. So we can, with the Option on the keyboard plus the click, we're then selecting just work on the video, just work on the audio. So I just wanted to review that, because I think that's really important. And right here, we'll do the same thing with the audio, and then I can use the comma and the period for left and right. So they're the left and right cursors on the keyboard. Right? So again, you can see I'm not doing anything to the picture. I'm just affecting the audio in this case. Right? So that's how we can effectively do those split edits in a real simple, fast way. And everything stays in sync, because we're just rolling from one, rolling between the two shots. So we're literally just rolling over the shot as we go, adding frames, taking off frames from the next shot, adding frames from the previous shot, right? So that's a real interesting way to work on those. So now, what are these other ones? So if I go to the trim edit mode, it offers the same thing, right? So I can still do all those like trim tools and left, right. So that now let's look at that. If I hit this, let's see what it does. And now what it's doing is, if we zoom in here, you can see that it's adding frames, but it's pushing everything back. It's pushing everything behind the sequence back, keeping everything in sync, but it's adding the frames and pushing everything back. So it's we're lengthening the sequence in this manner. And this kind of tool, the trim edit tool, really makes it great to work on the continuity and matching action. So you can see here's a really good example. Our character is sitting at the desk. If I add frames, what happens is, let's go to the top here and let me just make this a bit bigger. Get rid of the inspector here. Okay, so now you can see this dual window mode is really effective because you can see where it ends, and our character, she's turned around, and you can see in the other shot she's not turned around. So let me just zoom in here so we can kind of see this a bit better. Okay, so now watch as I trim, right? So I'm only affecting the outgoing shot, and what I want to do is make sure that she's not turned around, because that would be that wouldn't be continuous. So it would be a bizarre matching action because she's sitting looking forward. So by having her turned around, it's a continuity error and we're not matching the action. So that's where we get into that. So you can see it's the trim tools, everything kind of comes together. We're splits, working with the matching action and so on. Now let's go to the other option here. If I'm rolling, it's going to add, we're not extending the sequence, but watch what happens as I'm rolling now. Right, I'm taking away shots from the other one, but you can see she's leaning around. Again, that doesn't make sense for continuity, right? So that's how we can work on that mode. Now, what else we can do is, we can then start to trim within. So this lets me keep the same length of the shot, but by pressing the middle, by pressing into the middle in this mode, I'm now what's called rolling within the shot. So I'm just changing where it starts, where it ends, but I'm not changing the length of it. And I think that's a really important trim tool option as well. So we basically we can roll in the middle at the cut point. We can add frames to the end. We can add frames to the beginning of the incoming shot. So add frames to the end of the outgoing shot. Add frames to the beginning of the ingoing shot. So we have those two options. And then we can just roll within here as well, where we're just changing where the shot starts and stops. So you can see I can add a little bit more to the beginning if I want to have it match a little bit better for her at the desk. Okay, now the next tool is we have the dynamic trim mode. And this one has a few more tools as well, combined with the other ones. So let's just turn so same kind of thing. We got the rolls, we got the ends. We can quickly do this too, just with the mouse. Right, you can see we can slip like each side. And then I can just play with the audio. Now here's an important thing. So if I'm just slipping the audio, and watch this, when I go 1, now it's telling me I'm 1 frame out of sync because I'm just doing it to the audio. You can see every frame I'm doing that. And that's okay. You might want to change the audio depending on what you want to do. Okay, and then let's just zoom out of here. So it's really cool. You get these 4 windows. So you're sliding in between to try to perfect, again, potentially for continuity. So again, as he's typing, we could be looking at, you know, what matches perfectly. And let's watch this now, just for some of those. So those are basically our tools there. So if I do this one, it's really cool because it shows you how much you have in terms of the shot. You can see that big arrow showing up with how much footage you actually have. So it's really showing you, you know, what kind of handle you have, it's called, in terms of, you know, what's available. Okay, and then if we go back to the cursor, we have this ability where we can also move the shots. Let's just have a look at that. So I'm just in the regular like cursor selection mode, and watch this. If I move this shot, I'm destroying the beginning of the other shot and leaving the black frames there. But I'm keeping this shot exactly the length I want it. So that's a quick way. Sometimes you might want to adjust a couple frames. But again, as you can see, it's leaving those gaps there. Sometimes I don't mind doing that if I really need to aggressively, you know, cut something down and move some shots around, because like I always said, it's like a Tetris game, right? So once you block out a few, let's say you cut out 8 frames, you can slap the other one onto the back of the beginning of the next shot. So you can get rid of any of those gaps really quickly. And it's a great way to deal with your trimming there as well. Okay, so that's our main trimming tools there. So we have our trim edit mode and the dynamic trim mode, which is the slip mode there. So if we just click on this, oops. It you know, behaves very similarly to the other mode as well. Right? And then the combination is what I like, is where you know, we can slide around, we can you know, make things move around really quickly. And you can see we can just drag and move these things around as we need to. Right. So there we go. Okay, so now that's our trim modes there, just reviewed. And again, there's multiple ways. There's shortcut things. There's some keyboards and things that you can get. But just, you know, really think about the main things. So we have our tail of our outgoing shot. We have the head of our incoming shot. And you want to figure out, you know, where should it cut from one to the other. Again, we've been looking at dramatic reasons. We've been looking at technical, for reactions. It could be for, you know, punchline, for something comedic. It could be for something scary. It could be for a shock. So always think about why you're doing those trims and what you're doing. So now let's jump into the matching action. And this is where it gets you know, really important to be able to do this kind of trim work. So let's just pull the sequence that we have here, this part here.
Excuse me.
So for example, if I take, let's take this shot here. And we're just gonna make it not match. So look at, if something like this is happening. So he's typing. And then he sits down again, right? So that's a blatantly wrong match on action. So the continuity is off. So you can see the end here, we have him sitting down typing, and here he's sitting down and not even typing it. So here you can see he's already typing. So we definitely want to get it up to that point. So I'm just going to trim it back down. And now here's some really interesting ones. We look at, where is the head? So you can see it's down and then it's about to come up. So for example, these are those really fine-tuned details. So this is really, really subtle. But have a look at this. So his head's down, and here his head's up. And it's not horribly wrong, but it's definitely not matching the action that his head's down. So what I like to do in this kind of fine tuning is, if we can find a spot where maybe his head's going up. So see right here, his head's going up. And I'll just zoom in here a little bit so we can see that. So his head's going up. Right, I'm just using those period and comma keys, the two cursors. So his head's going up. So what's really cool is if you can then match the action. So his head goes up in this shot as well. And let's look at that. And then, see, it comes back down, and it's down, and then he gets frustrated. But that makes for a really dynamic cut point. Right, so he's, and there he's already looking up. So that one I'm gonna try to adjust a bit too. He's just about to look up. So see, it's just these like couple frames I'm adding on each side. And this is what we like to call the invisible edit. And by having those kinds of actions happening, so see this one too. So we have, he leans in. Be really picky here. So he leans in, he's about to type, and he kind of leans in here again. So this is again one of those things where you just want to trim a little bit of it off. So he's coming in. And what I like to recommend is if we can actually cut a little bit on the movement so that it's not like it just finished, but I like to go kind of mid-movement. So he's like starting it and then finishing it in the next shot. I like that as a preference. You can also go, you know, he finishes the action and then you cut to it right there. But I find it's kind of smooth when it's like initiating the action and then seeing it finish in the next shot, or the other way around, where it's just about to finish and you see the actual finish in that cut. And it makes for what, again, what is called, you know, an invisible edit. So you can see he just leans in and it's really smooth because then he starts typing. And again, here, he looks up, and he's looking down and he gets up. And that's that real continuity thing where we're trying to make sure that the person's looking in the right spot and they're moving in the right times and all that timing is correct. And that's what the fine tuning is. How do we get from the rough cut to the fine cut? We roughed it in, it worked, it was okay, but this is the fine tuning where we start to look at that. And so it's not just, there's the drama that, you know, we've got that basic story being told now in the drama, but now it's getting those fine tuning details where, you know, making the edit smooth. So it's kind of like, you know, you sketch something and then you go to like, we sketched it, now we go to like paint it and do like a final painting of it. And that's really that kind of fine tuning where we're really looking at the details, and the sketch is a great guide, but we want to get all those fine details now as we go to this fine cut. So look at this one here. He stands up, and let's say we said, okay, let's try to have him stand up in the wider shot. So you can see he gets up and his hand's in a kind of a different spot. But if you look at it, this shot, his hand's up. And his hand's kind of down here. So if we try to find the same kind of spot where his hand is, so to mark the in there, and we'll just mark it out like that. And I'm going to mark my in right here where on the timeline. So again, that's our 3 points, 1, 2, and 3. And then from there, I'm going to just do an overwrite. So again, overwrite goes right on top, destroys what's there. And the other one, the insert, inserts it and splits everything back. So if I do the overwrite, first I'll do the insert. You can see it's going to insert it back where it, you know, adds to it. And then we're going to have everything double. But what I want to do is just overwrite.
Excuse me. Hi.
Okay, so that worked great. And now what we're going to try to do is try to kind of hide that where he is
Excuse me.
and try to make it match a bit nicer. So he's up, hand
Excuse
to the,
me.
and then he comes
Hi.
in and looks at her. And that's it. That's our fine tuning there. So again, if I undo that,
Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Hi.
so you can see here, he's all the way over here. And let's just go through that frame by frame. He's all the way here. So I'm just using the arrow keys left, right there, and I'm going to go frame by frame. So he's walking away, and here he's looking at her, right? So that's that continuity thing that in the fine tuning we really want to look at in terms of getting it right. So again, I'm going to take that trim, and I'm just rolling it back. And you can see now his body position is looking a lot better.
Excuse me. Hi.
See, and he walks into it, and that's really cool. Okay, so that's what I would then continue doing for in terms of continuity, matching action all the way through, and getting that and working on that. So now let's look at kind of cataloging some of the emotions, and I think we were looking at this last time. What happens? So let's just kind of roll through here. I'm just going to zoom in on this particular shot. And this is what we want to, we were working on this last week, but you know, how do we really, you want to look at these different takes and cataloging. So here he is, frustrated, smiles, looks down. Here's like a polite smile there.
Thank you.
He's kind of frustrated by the computer, looks, gives kind of another smile, frustrated, kind of perplexed to what she's saying. So these are all those emotional things that you want to catalog and just identify. And I think sometimes we watch these and we don't necessarily always identify what's happening in the performance. Kind of taken aback. Oh, you know, look at the eyes, taking the compliment like, oh. He's confused why she knows who he is. He gets angry with the computer here, looks and smiles. Shocked that her sister had him as a professor. Different expressions.
Because of you. Please go towards me.
Okay, so you can see all the different emotions. So that's really what we want to always catalog in terms of whether we're watching it. And that's that tool that we can then use to do all our in-between takes, our markers. So same thing. And here's a really great reaction, and I think one of those things that, you know, we could probably add into our cut here. You know, she's kind of like, okay, well, you know, yeah, you keep talking.
Sorry if I'm being noisy.
And we'll just put that in just as a reaction here as he's kind of blabbering away. Let's go back here a little bit. And this is where, you know, we want to fine tune and.
Oh, I've been retired for a few years now, though. Still, those were wonderful years.
Okay, and let's try putting that right in here.
Oh, I've been retired for a few years now, though.
And I kind of like how this shot, how his head comes in. So this is one of those things where I like putting it on the other track here.
Oh, I've been
And then I'm going to trim the head of that a bit.
been retired for a few years now, though. Still, those were retired for a few years now, though. Still, those were wonderful years. Ah, I have great memories of those wonderful years.
So that's cool. So we just, add that little extra emotional shot there, and that works really well. So how do we achieve this? Really going through each take, and I'm just scrubbing through here quickly, just to see the different reactions. So smile, looking around.
Yes, likewise. And say hi to Diane for me. Yes, likewise. And
This is another great one too, where she just kind of looks. Let's put that in there.
wonderful years. Those wonderful years.
Okay, and let's just add a little bit here.
Years.
Okay, and I'm going to go here, edit. I'm going to go to what's called the ripple cut. So I marked an in and out on the timeline. So I have an in and out. I want to just get rid of that. So what I'm going to do is just do this ripple cut. And it's just going to suck it out and trim it down like that.
Those
Diane.
those
Diane.
Oops, I seem to have messed up our sequence here a little bit.
those wonderful years. Years.
Okay, and now we're good to cut it out.
Those wonderful years.
And now what's important is look at these little fine details. Like he's out of the frame there and he's, kind of leaned back here, and that's okay. So it's clean because we don't really see where his head is. So you just want to look at those kinds of things. And if there's an error, like let's say there's this shoulder right here, we can always go to this inspector tab. We can always like zoom in. And basically get rid of his shoulder, right? So that's a quick way. So I just go here, go to the inspector tab, zoom in, and then we reposition it, and we can get rid of that shoulder that's kind of standing in the way there. Perfect. So again, we're going to just look at this. So his hand's going up. So So this is a great opportunity to fine tune his hands going up and cut to the hand going up in the next shot as well. So this is, again, that continuity aspect. So I'm gonna just go to this trim tool here, and we're gonna trim off the tail there. And we're gonna try to add maybe a little bit to the head here. And you can see how smoother that is, because now his hand is like, basically, watch as I go frame by frame here, his hand's going up and continues. So we get that beautiful match on action. So his hand's going up and we can continue it into the next shot. And then it's really trying to make these edit points invisible. So what we've been doing now is adding a little bit of some more reactions by reviewing our cuts, or reviewing our footage and takes, finding some other gems of reactions, because we did like our sketch of the rough cut and now we're fine tuning it. So we really, what I want to stress here is that use the trim tools, review the footage again and again and again. It never stops. So just because we did our first cut, it doesn't mean that I'm not looking back. And scrubbing through doesn't hurt. We can just go through, find some of these emotional things like, oh, she's looking annoyed, she's looking happy, she's laughing, he's laughing. Finding those moments that can work now that we know the story we're telling in the scene, and making it better and better and better. And it's never really finished, but eventually we just have the deadline and we have to finish, and then that's it. And then the continuity, matching action, is really, really important. That, you know, that's part of our fine tuning. And so it's kind of the sphere of things. It's not like you do A, B, C. You know, I always look at it and say, okay, well, I'm going to trim some things down, look at continuity, review the shots again, find even better acting moments, performance moments, or reactions that can even enhance it further. So do I want her more annoyed? Do I want her less annoyed, right? Finding the different takes. And then I continue the fine tuning until all the matching on action and continuity seems really smooth. So that's really, in essence, what we're doing with this kind of further editing, and that's how it will work. So perfect. That's really cool. So just keep working on that, and make that duplicate, and then you're always ready to go, and you can go from there. Yeah. So that is our week 3 session. So again, feel free to, you can send me an email. It's tom@tbmcs.ca. If you have any questions, I'll just put it in the chat here as well. So tom@tbmcs.ca. If you're seeing the chat, send me an email. Happy to answer any kind of questions. If you've been working on trying some of these editing moments and concepts out in any way, please send me an edit. I'd love to see it, and we can talk more about that as well. So next week, we'll be, so this week was trim tools for drama and continuity. So how do it's kind of one and the same, where, we're trimming and we're also working on continuity, and we're also looking for that, building the drama even further. Next week, we're going to continue that exploration, and we're going to look at the a little bit, some more of the effects things. We touched on that, zooming, repositioning, that kind of stuff, and what we can do to further enhance what's happening in the shots to fine tune it to even further perfection. So we'll continue looking at that and on that journey. So again, thanks for joining us. You can rewatch this right after, and you can go back to weeks 1 and 2 as well, and next week, week 4. Please check out, we have August workshops up that you can register for. We have one on color science and color correcting with cinematography and into post. So if you kind of want to go through what is from camera to DaVinci Resolve color grading, we're going to have a really in-depth one on that as well. So that's something exciting that we're looking forward to doing. So that'll be in August as well. And thanks again for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and do a little bit of video editing. So thanks again to all our partners, Canada Council for the Arts, and our library partners, Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library. Don't forget to check out the iMac video editing, digital arts computers that you can access at all 3 of the libraries. So if you're a member at any of those libraries, check out those computers, get on them, and you can try some of the software out. Bring your footage, bring a hard drive, and attach it. You can attach any USB or USB-C Thunderbolt 3 drives to the computers. So they have both, so which is really convenient. So again, thanks for joining us, and I'll see you guys next week.